Kathy Hochul has been slamming the brakes on Zohran Mamdani's insane proposals. So again, she is in a neck-and-neck battle with Elise Stefanik for governorship of New York. And she is very much afraid that if she does what Zohran Mamdani wants, it'll absolutely crater her gubernatorial chances in her reelect effort. So yesterday, she tried to slam the brakes on Zohran Mamdani's nonsense. According to the New York Post, Hochul, speaking during a press conference at the Somos political retreat in Puerto Rico on Saturday, argued she's already put vast sums of money into the perpetually cash-strapped MTA for major projects. She said, we're spending a lot of money, so I can't set forth a plan right now that takes money out of the busing system that relies on the fares of the buses and the subways. Can we find a path to make it more affordable for people who need help? Of course we can. Meanwhile, Zohran Mamdani tried to avoid direct conflict with Hochul because he's going to lose. He said, I continue to be excited at the work of making the slowest buses in America fast and free, and I appreciate the governor's continued partnership in delivering on that agenda of affordability. Again, one of my bugaboos here is that in our politics, if you just say the problem over and over and over, people then give you credibility, which is ridiculous. If you have bad solutions, you labeling the problem does not help in any way, shape, or form. Meanwhile, by the way, the downstream effects of the Mamdani election are being felt. According to the Daily Wire, Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now recruiting NYPD officers disgruntled by the election of Zohran Mamdani. With a flood of cash from President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, the agency has set a goal to recruit 10,000 new officers to turbocharge the historic deportation campaign. New York City officers, already hamstrung by local sanctuary policies, are expected to face new hurdles with Mamdani in charge. So ICE put out a tweet yesterday, and it said, NYPD officers, defend your family, defend your city, defend the homeland, join ICE. ICE is already offering retired law enforcement officers up to $50,000 in recruitment bonuses, and they've received, apparently, at the DHS, more than 200,000 applications already. It'll be interesting to see what happens as the New York City Police Department empties out in favor of greener pastures. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party, again, there is no too radical for the Democratic Party. One of the hilarious internecine wars that is currently happening inside the Democratic Party is a war that happened in Minneapolis between Jacob Frey, who is the insanely left-wing mayor of Minneapolis. You remember him from kneeling in front of the George Floyd casket. You remember the masking and the riots and all that from 2020. And he was taking on Omar Fateh. Omar Fateh, of course, is Somali in origin and came very close to beating Jacob Frey. And apparently, one of the reasons that Jacob Frey won is that he actually identified inside the Somali community clans that didn't like other clans and then proceeded to target them for voting, which led Ilhan Omar, another person elected by the Somali community, to suggest that Somalis who didn't support her or Fateh should be expelled. I mean, you want to talk about tribal politics happening inside the Democratic Party? Here we go. She says when a Somalian person becomes an enemy, they become a serious one. There are people like that living right here in our city. We all see them. Some of us try to dismiss it, saying, oh, that person just talked too much. It doesn't mean anything. Or leave them alone. That's my relative. You've probably met them in coffee shops. You know exactly the kind of people I'm talking about. You've sat with them at Starbucks. Maybe you've seen them once in a while at the mosque. Maybe you've gone to parties together. You know who I mean. You've seen them. We need to get rid of these people. Man, politics here in the United States is going so well. I'm glad that we imported vast populations of people who are, so tribal that Ilhan Omar is able, on the basis of tribal identity alone, not even some sort of broader religious or ideological rubric, to sort of separate them out. Pretty impressive stuff right there happening in Minnesota. We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, do you remember that water crisis in Flint, Michigan a while back? You'd think America might have gotten its act together by now on, the clean drinking water, but not so true. Lead and heavy metals are still showing up in city after city. The pipes running into your home, a lot of them are older than your grandparents, and what's flowing through them is not what you'd actually want your kids drinking. That's why my team and I use Cove Pure to purify our water here in the studio. Because if you think career politicians who've ignored this problem for decades are going to just swoop in to save you, you might be waiting a while. The EPA itself admits millions of Americans are still exposed to lead in tap water. Lead doesn't just show up in reports. It's tied directly to developmental harm, brain function loss, long-term health issues. It's not worth the risk. If you think bottled water is the answer, well, turns out studies are finding microplastics and even heavy metals in bottled water as well. Cove Pure makes me feel confident about the water I'm drinking. It's certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants, heavy metals, pharmaceuticals, microplastics, the whole list. The best part? You don't have to drill holes or call a plumber. It looks super sleek. Just plug it in, choose hot or cold water instantly. Don't wait around for City Hall to fix century-old pipes. Protect yourself and your family today. Go to covepure.com/Shapiro right now. You can get $200 off for a limited time. Stop trusting bureaucrats with your family's health. Take control with Cove Pure. Meanwhile, it's not as though the infighting is not happening on the right as well. Marjorie Taylor Greene is attempting to lead an insurgency to take away control of MAGA from President Trump. Good luck with that to the congresswoman from Georgia, who would be a complete unknown were it not for President Trump, and some media figures who have touted her beyond all intellectual capacity. President Trump yesterday went after MTG, who has spent the last several weeks on a slam Trump tour with mainstream media voices.
So when somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's now catering to the other side, I don't know what, I guess she's, got some kind of an act going, but I'm surprised at her. But when somebody like Marjorie goes over and starts making statements like that, it shows she doesn't know. I don't devote a lot of my time.
Okay, so, again, the president is right about this. The only thing the president is missing is that it is obviously planned and it is also malign. The reason that Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing this is not because she has lost her way. It's because she has found her way, and her way is to undermine President Trump's coalition on behalf of her own parochial interests. That is what she is doing. She's been doing it for literally months. There's already a game that is being played by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to try and seize control of the MAGA movement away from President Trump and redefine it in a direction that she chooses. It is a thing that is clearly going on. And the president should know that, because that is what is happening here. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene then responded by telling Caitlin Collins of CNN, "I haven't lost my way. I'm 100% America first and only." Again, there are rumors that she wants to run for president, to which I say absolutely she should. And we will find out how popular her program is. I would suggest not all that popular. Okay, meanwhile, the president continues to be battered around on issues of affordability, because affordability, of course, is the word of the day. And yes, Americans are deeply concerned about affordability. As the New York Times points out, President Trump has mentioned the word affordability as much in the last week as he has in the past 9 months. His renewed attention to the issue comes after weeks in which he faced mounting criticism for appearing out of touch with everyday Americans. So Democrats have been trying to make the case that President Trump is not paying attention to affordability. President Trump has fought back by claiming that inflation is way down under his presidency, which of course is true, is way up under Joe Biden. It is reduced, but it is not ended by any stretch of the imagination. A Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll recently found that a majority of Americans say they are currently spending more on groceries and utilities than they were a year ago. Only 30% of voters believe President Trump has lived up to their expectations for tackling inflation and the cost of living. And of course, it is Marjorie Taylor Greene who's leading the charge, not because she cares about affordability, but because she wishes, again, to attack the president. She said, "I go to the grocery store myself. Groceries prices remain high. Energy prices are high. My electricity bills are higher here at Washington, D.C., at my apartment. They're also higher at my house in Rome, Georgia, higher than they were a year ago." Now, again, the ways that you actually bring affordability into view: freer trade, less regulation, lower taxes. That makes things more affordable. But the president, again, seems very wedded to his tariff regimen. And the tariffs are not particularly hitting tech. Okay, tech, because tech is transnational and it is less wedded to location than many other businesses in the United States, the tariffs just don't hit NVIDIA in the same way. They don't hit Tesla in the same way, because Tesla's valuation is not as much predicated on the number of cars that it sells as it is on the expectation that Elon Musk is using all of the data that he's gathering to build new types of robotics and new types of AI. So what does that mean? It means all the gains are going to the tech companies at the top of the market, and all the sort of mainstream American companies that actually rely on inputs and then being able to export. Those are the ones that are being hurt. Nonetheless, President Trump is out there warning of a national security disaster if the Supreme Court shoots down the tariffs. Here he was yesterday.
We have AI factories. We're leading China by a lot. We have cars and, car plants coming in by more than we've ever had built before. All of that would go away if we lose the tariff case. So all of it would go away. So they're not giving the right numbers. It would be an economic disaster. It would be a national security disaster if we lost the case in the Supreme Court.
Okay, now I think the markets would react a very different way than President Trump suggests. If the Supreme Court were to strike down the tariffs, yeah, there would be another round of uncertainty, but at least the president wouldn't be able to sort of just blanket tariff the entire world. So my guess is the economy would actually rebound in the face of such a decision by the Supreme Court. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.